So this is a strange beat I made yesterday. It doesn't really have a BPM. I basically calibrated what sounded right as far as different rhythms. And I found that like I could trigger them at any time and it would sound okay. I'm just gonna go through how I set up my Koala samples and just my process of separating the instruments and being a little organized in spite of this bad chaos. Just wanted to play a bit for you so you get a sense of the general sounds and compositions I have going here. So what I'm going to do is just bring in this sample and show you how I edit it. So we'll get rid of it and I'll bring it in from my sample library. So we'll go import audio. And here is a bunch of guitar sounds I've recorded. And we're going to be using this 12-string guitar sound that I actually recorded in a music shop. Okay, so we'll import that into the app. And see what we have here. So I know that I really was using just a little bit of the sample, and I believe it was this one right here. So I'll bring that in, and I know my settings. So I had the attack like that and the release a little bit. And yeah, so we have that same kind of sound right now. I know I pitched it up like a touch, so it was like just like 14. And we'll one-shot it, and we'll put it on loop, and we'll find a kind of right repetition for. So that's like a little slower. And I'll just put on the drums. So yeah, you can kind of see how I'm building like a drum sound. I also change the tone a little bit, and I also I think I'm working on this one. So I know I took out below 100 hertz and just gave it a little bump. Around 800. So you're really accenting that high end. And you can pan it a little bit. So kind of get rid of those. And yeah, so you can kind of see how I'm creating this. I'll show you some of my other samples. And in general, I'm keeping all my instruments on this half. And I'm putting all my drum sounds on this side, right? So these 8 are drums. These are my instruments. Next, is just sort of like a noise. And I've EQ'd it. Added a bit of attack and release, so it comes in slower and fades out. And this is just a trigger, so I'm just like hitting this once in a while. This I wanted to bring in some noise and some atmosphere. I forget where I recorded this. This was just some random noise somewhere. So I have that going in the background sometimes, and I've got it on loop and hold. This is actually the same as this one, so it's the same 12-string guitar. I've put it in reverse. We can hear how it sounds forward, right? I've got it on one shot, I pitched it up a little bit, just like one semis, and I've got it panned a little bit, and my tack and release. So it comes in a little slower when I'm reversing. It's just for like a little bit of atmosphere and trippiness. Down here, this is actually also the same 12-string guitar, but I've pitched it down quite a lot. So I've got it at like 4-4.66 seconds. Got it on hold and loop. Comes in a little slower on the attack. I've EQ'd it more for the low end, so kind of gave it a bump, about 200. I kept the high end, but I really nerfed the lows, the subs. Okay, this is my bass on this one. I've put it on loop, and I've got it holding, so it'll just keep playing the same 4 notes. And I've actually pitched this down quite a lot. Oops, it goes about there. And how I kind of got this pitch was I just went by ear. I was listening to just like tuning it the right amount, so it sounds right together. So that's my bass. This was a bass I recorded maybe months ago. It's a fretless bass. Every morning I just record a bit of bass most mornings. This is a classical guitar, or maybe it's my acoustic. I think it was just some night I was like, oh, this is a cool little riff. So I've kind of cut out, gave it a bit of space in between, so it'll just sort of repeat this kind of pattern. And you could hear some noise in it, so it probably was from my room, just me recording a little riff on my acoustic guitar. And I've cut out a lot of the low end, and maybe I should cut out some of this high end, but maybe I'll keep some of that noise in the high end. But I've really tried to get it around 900 hertz or 1K-ish. Really get, that nice mid-tone. Okay. So next we have, this is another similar to the first one. It's also the 12-string guitar, but I've picked a different note. I've pitched it way higher. So it's like 7.52 semis. And again, I'm using my ear to tune this. And I put it on loop, added a lot of attack, and a generous amount of release. Okay. So next, let's get into my drums here. So we'll go for this. This is a sample from a cajon. This is my cajon in my room. And I picked one of the lower hits, and I've even pitched it down even more. I think it was at 4, I think. So it sounds a bit more like a kick, but this is probably more like a, it's probably more like a tom sound. Okay, so I'm using that just as a quick kick hit. This is the actual cajon. So I think one of those I used for that kick sound. But I clipped out. Oh yeah, I cut it. Yeah, I clipped out like a nice little rhythm I could have that could keep going in the background. I think this BPM was 107.5, but I'm not even really thinking about BPM. I'm going for like somehow it working all together. Okay, next. This was a snare sound. I think this was like some washer noise, and I pitched it a bit lower. I like my snares like meaty, so they kind of have, they still have crack, but they have that mid-tone, they're strong. But I've actually pitched it at about 1K, give it a little bump. It took out a lot of the low end, below 100. Okay. This is also the cajon, and I found sort of like an interesting rhythm to go. And, I pitched it up a bit, so I go a little faster, and that's sort of my way of adjusting the BPM to work together. So I'll kind of like change the pitch as I'm listening to the other instruments. So you kind of get this interesting polyrhythm, and it sounds different because it's pitched up also, so it kind of accents the same instrument. It's probably like these same notes that I've copied over there. And similarly, this is also the cajon, and I've pitched it way up, so I've got it at 5. Probably the same notes as this one, but a different cut, and there's a slightly different rhythm going on. You could get some really interesting rhythms just, mixing it like that. I should take out some of this and try to pitch it a little higher. This spot is generally where I put my hi-hats. I was thinking, just usually a higher, faster. I was EQing this one. Okay, put it back. So this one, yeah. So I do have it EQ'd higher. Okay, so this is a drum machine. Analog TR6 sampled. Put it in a hi-hat position. This is also where I keep hi-hats, but as you can hear in the sample, I have a kick going on it, and maybe I shouldn't lower it so much because I actually wanted that kick. And maybe I could bring in some of that, around 200. But I found this was just a stable rhythm. The sample was just like a cut. And I don't even know what this BPM is, but it works. I didn't pitch it very much, and I just put this on loop, so I could just have this going in the background. The kick comes in around here, and then it just hi-hats there, so it's a bit weird and a bit random, but that's sort of what I'm going for in this track, is sort of unpredictability. Just hats. Okay. This sample is a bongo. I think I also got this from a music shop. I really like the build in this part, just the energy. Some of the ambient noise is great too. I think I could probably take this high end because you can even hear people talking in the background, which is alright. Do it instead of lo-fi. Okay, great sample. And this is also the cajon, but a very different cut too. I've pitched it a little different, and this is actually this is probably the same as this one, except just a different pitch. Yeah, so I remember I had it originally sort of like maybe like this, but I cut it back to like this for some reason, so I guess I kind of like this pattern. But it's fun because I could just switch up my different. So maybe I'll play it all together for you, and Yeah, let's see how I built this. And at this point, I'm just composing, playing around, see what sounds good. And this is probably one of these tracks where I'll play manually, and it'll be a little more improvised, more chance-based. Probably take a lot of practice for me to really get to a point where I'm like, okay, I could play this pretty smooth. But what I like about this kind of process is it all sounds right together, and I'm not too worried about triggering it at the perfect moment. It can be a lot more intuitive and looser. So I'm trying to get back to it. Later video, I was thinking I could show you guys how I do my drum setup and kind of have it for more like finger drumming. Usually I send it to a MIDI controller, or I actually have pads I can play. This video I've looped a lot of it, so it kind of doesn't make sense. I could bring in other instruments, but I also like the minimalism for it. I could just have these samples and play the track and not overcomplicate it. I think it's enough, it's like there's enough chance, there's enough different kinds of sounds, but it's also fairly unified because I've used a lot of the same instruments. sort of a unique process for me. I don't know if anybody else works like this. But yeah, it definitely, Koala Sampler has so much potential as far as ease of use and process. If you have any questions, suggestions, let me know what you think. If you think this is, if it helps you, or